Hey everybody, I'm Mike. This is Budget Guides and Gear Reviews, and you are watching The Right of the People, where we use the first to defend the second. So uncover your keyboards and fire up your fingers. It's time to join the conversation.
Hello, boys! I'm back!
That's right, folks. We are back in the saddle again. This is The Right of the People, where we use the first to defend the second. Took me about 8 months off, but I'm glad to be back here with you guys having this conversation. And it is a conversation, folks, so please feel free, chime in. If you have any opinions about what I'm talking about, sound off in the chat. If you are not here live, if you are instead catching this in the replay, leave a comment. But most important, leave a thumbs up. That really helps the algorithm tell people that this is, in fact, something they want to watch. So thumb it up, folks. We got a lot to talk about today, as usual. I mean, Mark Walters does his show on the radio 2 hours a day plus 3 hours on Sundays. So, he's right in there, right? And this topic is pretty much inexhaustible. There is, tons to talk about. But first, I want to say hello to everybody who's out there. We got Warsaw Patriot being first way early. Kingpin was here. Thank you, sir. Krabby Turtle. I'm not sure who Krabby Turtle is. So, yeah, you got a wrench. So I must have recognized your username at one point. So, yeah. Don't know who you are now, though. But that's okay. I don't have to, right? Apparently, you know who I am, so hey. And strangely enough, even despite that, you're here watching this. So that's just crazy to me. Right now, I got 3 people watching? Holy cow. Well, hey, is the microphone working? You said, hey, Mike, M-I-C, or did you mean M-I-K-E? There you go. Hopefully hopefully we're working here. So let me know out there, Warsaw, is the microphone working? I know last week when I did the show, kind of a pre-comeback show, we had a little bit of technical diddlies, but it wouldn't be the right of the people without it. So yeah, hopefully though, we don't have any today. Hopefully my microphone is behaving and I've set everything up right, and hopefully it is loud and clear out there. Well, I think we're gonna dive right into this and hit. Mike is working good and sounds great. Outstanding. Hopefully, we'll get some more folks coming on in here. I know they're not used to being here to watch this stuff, and maybe there's something else going on that they're watching. I don't know. What's going on at 11 o'clock on a Sunday? I don't know. Is there somebody else on right now? Maybe is Yankee still on or something? That could be it. I never watch Yankee's show. His live stream is a little bit too, I don't know, it gets out there sometimes. I'm not particularly a fan of his live stream. I like his produced content most of the time. But yeah, I can do without his live. Another shooting took place in Chicago. Well, that's just Sunday night in Chicago. That's all. Chicago is a cesspool of filth and crime. And, gang related? Well, yeah, of course. Hey, we got Ozzy Osbourne out there barking at the moon. How are you, sir? It's good to see you here. No technical diddlies tonight, so, people can hear me. There's some good news out there for those of you who've been following the whole bump stock debacle, where the ATF, after the Las Vegas shooting, where the alleged shooter allegedly used bump stocks, which I still haven't actually seen any proof of, that bump stocks were actually used. There's some dispute about that, but bump stocks got in the limelight then, and Donald J. Trump directed his Department of Justice to do something about them. It's good to see you too, Ozzy. Anyhow, Donald Trump directed his ATF to do something about it. So the ATF, without benefit of going through Congress, decided that bump stocks, an inert piece of plastic that does nothing to actually change the function of a rifle, they only allow you to manipulate the rifle faster. But they decided that the bump stock is in fact a machine gun. So, yeah, bump stocks were supposed to go bye-bye. Well, as you can imagine, there were some folks that objected to that, and they filed lawsuits. Of course, people that didn't file lawsuits was the owner of Slide Fire, who cashed out, sold out all his inventory, cashed out, and done. Didn't use that money to fight anything. So if and when bump stocks come back, screw that guy. So, yeah, there are, anyhow, other folks decided that they were going to go ahead and file a lawsuit. And one of those lawsuits, the Cargill lawsuit, is headed to SCOTUS. The Supreme Court of the United States granted cert. Let's take a look at this piece from bearingarms.com. The Supreme Court will decide whether the Trump administration's ban on bump stocks, implemented by the ATF in 2018 after the Route 91 music festival shootings in Las Vegas, was a proper exercise of agency authority or an overreach on the part of the administration. By the way, this is from November 3rd, 2023 by Cam Edwards. On Friday, the court granted cert in a case known as Garland v. Cargill, one of several cases that have been bouncing around the lower courts since the ban was first put in place. The court's granting of the case wasn't exactly a surprise for a couple reasons. The Solicitor General had sought Supreme Court review, but there are also splits in the federal appellate courts over the legality of the ban. The Fifth Circuit has ruled the bump stock ban was improperly put into effect, while the D.C. Circuit, Sixth Circuit, and Tenth Circuit have all allowed the ban to remain in effect. I'm sorry, the Fifth Circuit has ruled the bump stock ban was improperly put into effect, while the D.C. Circuit, Sixth Circuit, and Tenth Circuit all let it stay there. SCOTUS loves to take those kinds of cases where the different circuits have issued some dissenting opinions, opinions that don't agree with each other. That's kind of it's something like that. When that happens, it makes it far more likely for SCOTUS to grant certiorari to a case, because it's their job. If one federal court says one thing, the other federal court says another, SCOTUS needs to decide which one is correct. So that's what they're doing here. Now, the question before the court is whether a bump stock can be considered a machine gun under the statutory definition, meaning the law, provided by the National Firearms Act. Any weapon which shoots, is designed to shoot, or can be readily restored to shoot automatically more than one shot without manual reloading by a single function of the trigger. That is the crux of this matter right here, is that whole single function of the trigger language in the law. For those who don't know what I'm talking about and don't understand why that's an issue, when you fire a rifle, you press the trigger that releases the hammer, which strikes the firing pin, which then strikes the primer causing the ignition of the round, and the weapon fires. Bolt retracts, which cocks the hammer. You have to let go of the trigger to reset the trigger, and then it will only fire once you press the trigger again. What a bump stock allows you to do is to take that rifle, press forward manually by yourself, you using your own muscle power, press forward on the foregrip, which then, and you hold your finger in place, which then presses that trigger. At that point, once it fires and the recoil, the gas goes and makes the bolt go to the rear, the recoil that happens then lets the rifle move just enough so that it resets the trigger. Your continued forward motion then presses the trigger, and it repeats and repeats until you stop using your muscle power to apply forward motion to the bump stock. That allows you to manipulate that trigger very fast, okay? But it's still one round being fired for one function of the trigger. That's the important thing. That's why bump stocks were legal, because it doesn't turn the rifle into a fully automatic weapon, because a fully automatic weapon can fire multiple rounds with a single function of the trigger. You see the difference? Just hold it back and you can empty the magazine. Whereas with a bump stock, the trigger still has to be manipulated. It has to press and reset for every single shot. It just does so much faster than most people other than Jerry Michalek can do with their finger unaided. And that's why that's the sticking point. The term shall also include the frame or receiver of any such weapon, any part designed and intended solely and exclusively, or combination of parts designed and intended for use in converting a weapon into a machine gun, and any combination of parts from which a machine gun can be assembled if such parts are in the possession or under the control of a person. Bump stocks can increase the rate of fire, but still require a separate pull of the trigger before a round is discharged. As I just explained to you. For years, the ATF maintained that bump stocks were not machine guns, but reversed course after Donald Trump ordered the agency to review its findings in 2018. By the way, El Trumpador did this at the advice and with quote-unquote consent and permission from the NRA. The not real activists. So let's see. 2018. Lo and behold, the ATF reversed course and declared that the previous guidance addressing bump stocks without internal springs did not reflect the best interpretation of the term machine gun. Quoting from the Solicitor General's cert petition. What they're talking about springs is there used to be a type of bump stock called an Aikens accelerator that had a spring in the back of the tube. Because what it was is it was a grip and a stock that you slid on over your buffer tube. Well, it had a spring in there, and that spring, when the recoil would press the rifle backwards in the slide, the recoil buffer would hit that spring and go forward, which you didn't have to keep continuing your forward muzzle pressure. Okay, you just pulled the trigger, and then it did it all by itself. Okay. They determined that to be an automatic action, a mechanical action, as opposed to a muscle-powered action. So they forced everyone to remove springs from bump stocks, and instead, your own muscle power had to provide the motive force behind it, which I can kind of understand where they were coming from with that, but it's still garbage. Should have never, we should never have to have such garbage as bump stocks anyway. We should be able to own full auto machine guns and any damn firearm we want. But I digress. Pardon me. The notice further stated that ATF had applied different understandings of the term automatically over time in reviewing bump stocks, and that the agency had authority to reconsider and rectify potential classification errors. The notice proposed to clarify that all bump stock type devices are machine guns under the statutory definition. ATF published a final rule on December 26, 2018. The final rule amended ATF's regulations to address the terms single function of the trigger and automatically as used in the definition of machine gun in order to clarify that bump stock devices are machine guns under Section 5845B. In the preamble to the rule, the agency stated that it continued to adhere to its previous understanding that the phrase single function of the trigger includes a single pull of the trigger, while clarifying that the phrase also includes motions analogous to a single pull. See, here's where they're trying to weasel and worm around what's actually written in the law. They're saying, like Bill Clinton said, it depends on what your definition of is, right? ATF also determined that, under the best interpretation of the statute, the term automatically includes functioning as the result of a self-acting or self-regulating mechanism that allows the firing of multiple rounds through a single pull of the trigger. However, as I previously stated, it's not a self-acting or self-regulating. With a spring, I can understand how they could claim that it's self-acting or self-regulating. With your own forearm, your own muscle power, providing the action of the bump stocks, making it slide forward to depress the trigger, that's not automatic. That's you making a conscious decision to provide that forward force on the firearm. Michael Cargill, owner of Central Texas Gunworks, challenged the new rule shortly after it took effect. While a district court judge and three-judge panel of the Fifth Circuit ruled in favor of the government, an en banc review by the Fifth Circuit overturned those decisions, with a majority agreeing that the rule of lenity requires interpreting the statutory definition of machine gun not to encompass bump stocks. The court's ruling in this case could also end up having an impact on the Biden administration's use of ATF rules to impose new restrictions on pistol stabilizing braces and unfinished frames and receivers, which the agency has largely reclassified as short-barreled rifles and completed firearms, respectively. Besides the Cargill case, the Supreme Court also granted cert to a Second Amendment adjacent case involving the National Rifle Association. In NRA v. Vullo, the court will determine whether the actions of the head of New York's Department of Financial Services violated the First Amendment rights of the Second Amendment organization by using back-channel threats, ominous guidance letters, and selective enforcement of regulatory infractions to induce banks and insurance companies to avoid doing business with the 2A group. In its order granting cert, the court agreed to answer the following question. Does the First Amendment allow a government regulator to threaten regulated entities with adverse regulatory actions if they do business with a controversial speaker as a consequence of A, the government's own hostility to the speaker's viewpoint, or B, a perceived general backlash against the speaker's advocacy? Again, the stakes here are pretty clear. If the court finds that the actions of the DFS head are acceptable, we can expect more anti-gun officials in states across the country to pressure outside groups from associating and doing business with Second Amendment organizations or other groups disfavored by the party in power. I'm glad to see both of these cases accepted by the court, though given the appellate court split on the bump stock question, I don't think SCOTUS had much of a choice but to take that case. Here's hoping there are 5 justices ready and willing to rein in the executive branch overreach that began during the Trump administration, but has been greatly expanded under Joe Biden, as well as putting a stop to the First Amendment abuses practiced by New York officials. So, now I'm going to tell you that I think this case could be huge, and it could be about more than the bump stock. I've always said the bump stock thing wasn't important because of the bump stock in and of itself. In and of itself, a bump stock is just a range toy, in my opinion, with no practical applications. That's why I never bought one. But what this case is really about, as I've said, those of you who've watched this before will, I hope, remember, as I've said many times, this isn't about the bump stock. It's about the ATF overstepping its bounds and using its regulatory authority to bypass Congress and rewrite legislation. Every time that a law is written, it has definitions of what the terms in it are. Okay? It defines specifically what things like automatically mean, what things like machine gun mean, etc. It has to have those specific definitions because the law has to be as clear as possible. In order to change definitions within a statute, you have to go through new legislations to amend that statute, to amend that law or replace that law. A non-elected, non-accountable regulatory agency does not have the statutory authority to rewrite law. That's the place of Congress. That's the power of legislation. That is not the executive branch. That is the legislative branch who does that. Now, had Congress at the time decided that they wanted to rewrite the law to include bump stocks and machine guns, I would have thought it sucked. I would have thought it was stupid. I would have thought that they had no business doing it. But it would have been legal because Congress has that authority. Congress is accountable to the voters. The ATF ain't. So, what do you guys think out there in the chat? Do you think that this case is an important one? Or is it, meh, it's a bump stock? Because I'm going to tell you the other thing that this case is going to do, aside from bump stocks, is it has the potential to really hose the ATF's regulatory overreach in other areas as well, such as arm stabilizing braces. You know, they rewrote the definition of that and reversed their own opinions on whether or not an arm stabilizing brace is a stock, whether or not a brace-equipped pistol is a short-barreled rifle, and it also has the potential to get rid of the ATF's overreach in the frame and receivers rule, where 80% frames, 80% receivers are magically, transformed from a hunk of aluminum paperweight into a gun without having had the work done to it. So let's see what's going on out there in the chat. We got Mountain View coming in. Says he's late. Well, that's okay. You're here. That's what's important, man. NRA is pickles out there. NRA is good as an absorber of flax, so real Pro 2A groups can work. Yeah, that maybe. Warsaw says the NRA is corrupt as long as Wayne or anyone associated or greedy like Wayne to this day can't be trusted. Yeah, correct. I don't have much to do with the NRA other than being a member because of being an instructor. Other than that, I don't care. Because they still have Little Wayne in there. Warsaw says this case is a major importance. Calavera says if SCOTUS rules broadly enough, could take the ATF teeth away. If they rule narrow, it won't do much. And you're right. That is the fear I have, that they will rule narrowly and it won't have any effect whatsoever. That's kind of what I'm fearing. We'll see. We'll see how this pans out. As I find out more information, I will definitely be telling you guys about it. So stay tuned for that. In other news, let's see, where are we? Hold on a moment, folks. It takes me a second to figure out what I'm doing here. It's been a while, right? And I said I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be back. There is more skullduggery going on in the courts. Some not so good Not so good news. This is a piece from Breitbart. Seventh Circuit, AR-15s not protected by Second Amendment. On Friday, a three-judge, this is, by the way, from November 4th. On Friday, a three-judge panel of the United States Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit overturned an injunction against Illinois' assault weapons ban, deciding that AR-15s are not protected by the Second Amendment. The preliminary injunction was issued in Barnett v. Raoul by U.S. District Judge Stephen P. McGlynn, a Donald Trump appointee. McGlynn's decision was appealed to the Seventh Circuit, where a three-judge panel decided 2-1 against the injunction. Pardon me. The three judges were Ronald Reagan appointee Frank Easterbrook, Bill Clinton appointee Diane P. Wood, and Donald Trump appointee Michael P. Brennan. Easterbrook and Wood constituted the panel majority in overturning the injunction. They noted that Heller held, like most rights, the right secured by the Second Amendment is not unlimited. They went on to note that in Heller, the Supreme Court of the United States found that machine guns were not protected under the Second Amendment because they were not bearable arms, and that is because they can be dedicated exclusively to military use. Easterbrook and Wood then focused on similarities they found between AR-15s and M16s, the latter of which can be fired in full auto or 3-round burst modes. They wrote, "The similarity between the AR-15 and the M16 only increases when we take into account how easy it is to modify the AR-15 by adding a bump stock, as the shooter in the 2017 Las Vegas event had done, or auto sear to it, thereby making it, in essence, a fully automatic weapon." In a decision addressing a ban on bump stocks enacted by the Maryland legislature, another federal court found that bump stock devices enable rates of fire between 400 to 800 rounds per minute. They also noted that both guns use the same ammunition and deliver the same kinetic energy. Judge Brennan dissented from the majority decision, stressing that the Illinois assault weapons ban fails if tested by Bruin because the ban has no historical precedent in American tradition. Brennan wrote, "Because the banned firearms and magazines warrant constitutional protection, and the government parties have failed to meet their burden to show that their bans are part of the history and tradition of firearms regulation, preliminary injunctions are justified against enforcement of the challenged laws." The case is Beavis v. City of Naperville in the United States Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit. Yeah, pretty cool. A three-judge panel in the Seventh Circuit said no, AR-15s are not protected by the Second Amendment. You know it's bullshit. I know it's bullshit. But apparently, for some reason, they don't know it's bullshit. I can't figure that one out other than, they're anti-gun left-leaning liberals. That's all I can figure. I'm sure this will be appealed to an en banc panel, and we'll see where it goes from there. Calaveras says the 7th is as bad as the 9th. Warsaw says that's going directly to SCOTUS. Good. I hope so. I hope it's going to SCOTUS, and I hope SCOTUS spanks them with the Bruin decision, given that, this is the court that made the Bruin decision, right? So, again, as this case goes through the courts, I'll keep you guys posted because this is important. I really would like to see SCOTUS take up one of these assault weapons ban cases, whether it's this one or the Maryland case or et cetera, because once SCOTUS gets to it and issues a ruling, which I can't see how they could issue any ruling other than AR-15s are indeed protected by the Second Amendment, and any other so-called assault weapons are protected by the Second Amendment. I can't see how they can say anything else. Once they do that, that's law of the land forever and ever, amen, all across the fruited plain, as Rush used to say. Scott says Supreme Court is going to see that case. Good. So we'll keep you posted on that one. Let's see what's up next. Well, Democrats, and yeah, I'm calling a spade here because it's Democrats, are pushing gun control. Hey, what a shock, right? Both in the wake of the Hamas attack in Israel and in the wake of the Lewiston, Maine shooting. Last week we talked about the contrast between the U.S. politicians' response to the Maine shooting and the Israeli politicians' response to the Hamas attack. Well, our politicians are getting involved in that. The Israeli response. Old Sniffy Joe does not like the fact that the Israelis seem to be trying to arm up their people. This is a piece from Breitbart. Biden administration threatens to quit supplying rifles after Israel's Ben-Gvir reportedly arms civilians. Because, we can't have civilians being armed shown to be effective anywhere in the world because that undercuts their position here. Unless it's Ukraine, then, send them all the rifles and all the money and all the everything else that they want, right? Because they're not Jews, and, the anti-Semites can't bitch about that, right? Like they're doing all over the place. Did you guys see, as a complete aside, how thousands of these assholes marched on Washington demanding to free Palestine? In other words, get rid of Israel. How freaking disgusting that communists, because a lot of them were communist socialist organizations that were there with this, how commies and anti-Semites can scavenge together thousands of people to march on DC, and we could barely get 1,000 to march on DC for the Second Amendment. That, folks, I know I'm trying to keep this family friendly, but that's fucked up. We can do better than that. I don't know why we don't. But again, I digress. Anyway, the Biden administration became upset and threatened to quit supplying rifles to Israel after photos emerged of National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir passing them out to community security squads, according to Haaretz. And pardon me if I'm butchering these names. I'm not doing it intentionally. Photos of the rifles being passed out were posted on Ben-Gvir's social media and led to a diplomatic incident that threatened to stop the arms shipments from the United States to Israel. The Biden administration reportedly does not want guns passed out to civilians nor distributed during political events. Haaretz noted the Biden administration also threatened to halt an order of some 20,000 rifles purchased by the National Security Ministry from American suppliers. The Telegraph reported that photos purportedly showed Ben-Gvir distributing the arms at political events in Bnei Brak and Elad, two towns near Tel Aviv. A social media user posted the tweet below, which translates National Security Minister of Israel Itamar Ben-Gvir distributing arms to civilians. Here, in Brazil, the order is to disarm the civilian and arm the criminal. So let's watch this. Damn. Sure would have been nice for our government to pass out M16s and M4s to the citizenry back when all the riots and lootings, the burn, loot, murder riots were going on all over the place. But, they're sure not going to arm us against their allies, right? And just like they don't want the Israelis to arm their people against, the Democrat allies in the Palestinians. Yeah, I said it. In October 10th, 2023, the Times of Israel noted that Ben-Gvir's ministry was purchasing 10,000 rifles to arm civilian security teams, specifically those in towns close to Israel's borders around the country. Bulletproof vests and helmets were also to be distributed. So, yeah, apparently if you're going to give them to the common man, the common citizen, in order to allow him to protect himself, his family, and his country, well, Shit. We can't have that, can we? Only the government should have guns. Because, you know, that worked out so well for Jews in the past, didn't it? Calaveras says, and I tend to agree, Ukraine is laundering to U.S. Israel isn't. That's right. Nobody's giving 10% to the big guy in Israel, are they? I think it's sad that so many people in our government are demonstrably on the side of Hamas terrorists, of the Palestinians that support the Hamas terrorists, are advocating for the people who want to commit genocide against the Israelis. I don't know how in this country our voters can tolerate people like that. I mean, we know where that leads. History has shown us where that leads. And before you say it, Warsaw, yes, I know. Those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Is that really what they're looking for? Do they want another Holocaust? I can only assume that they do. And I don't understand it. I can't understand it. How can you want something so heinous? How can you support people who want something so heinous? I can't grasp the concept. I can't grasp the concept. It just doesn't make sense to me. Of course, on the domestic front, the Democrats are still hooting and hollering for more gun control in the wake of the Maine atrocity. This is a piece from Red State from November 3rd by Matt Funicello. House and Senate Democrats are coming after your ammunition now. On Thursday, November 2nd, Senator Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, and Congressman Robert Garcia, Democrat, California, introduced their newest gun control measure in Congress to further restrict your rights, but this time it's the ammunition thereafter. The bill, dubbed the Ammo Act, will federalize a version of existing state law here in California that restricts ammunition sales by requiring a criminal background check, banning out-of-state ammunition orders, requiring vendors to obtain a separate license to sell ammunition, and more. If passed, the Ammo Act will prohibit purchases of more than 1,000 rounds of any caliber within a 5-day period, as well as require all vendors to obtain a federal license to sell ammunition, and will require all vendors to report ammunition sales to the ATF. In a joint statement on X, Warren and Garcia gave their reasonings for their legislation, which parrots the same old lies and fear-mongering the left uses when it talks about guns and gun control. So let's go ahead and listen to this absolute garbage.
Hey everyone, it's Congressman Robert Garcia, and I'm here with Senator Elizabeth Warren, and we're really proud today to introduce the Ammo Act. The Ammo Act restricts bulk sales of ammunition across the country. It makes sure that retailers who are selling ammunition have the same federal licensing as folks that are selling guns, and it ensures that people that are buying ammunition go through some type of background check.
Because here's the deal. Right now, there are no federal restrictions.
Nor should there be.
On the sale of ammunition. And that makes no sense at all.
As we know,
I wonder, shouldn't there be federal restrictions on claiming to be a Native American when you're not? just asking for a friend.
Thousands of people across the country lose their lives to gun violence every single year, and conservatives in Congress continue.
There's no such thing as gun violence. None, period. Zip, zilch, nada. It does not exist. Gun violence is a made-up term that's used to demonize the tool for the task, not the person wielding the tool. But again, speaking of tools, let's go back to what these idiots have to say.
To do absolutely nothing.
Right. Think about that. Thousands of communities that are shattered, families that are torn apart. Gun violence is now the leading cause of death for our children.
Which is an absolute lie. Absolute freaking lie. Car accidents kill more people than violence does. Violence with guns does. I'm not going to say gun violence because it ain't gun violence.
We just need some sensible laws in place to have better gun safety.
In other words, they want to further restrict your God-given constitutionally protected rights.
And that's what our bill is all about.
That is what your bill is all about. Restricting our God-given constitutionally protected rights.
We need to take these critical steps to ensure that we save more families and kids from gun violence. And I want to thank you, Senator Warren, for all your leadership on this.
Let's get this done.
Let's get this done. With their latest move for gun control agenda, this legislation makes no sense. Besides being another attack on the Second Amendment, this is really just another power and money grab by the federal government. On the surface, it doesn't seem to be that bad to some people. Technically, you can still buy over 1,000 rounds. You just have to wait a week between purchases. But now, you have to pay a background check fee, of which they do not specify what amount that fee will be. And now the government gets to keep track of how many times you buy ammunition and what kind of ammunition you're buying. Oh, and they're asking for an additional $150 million to upgrade the NICS, which is the National Instant Check System that is used for gun purchases. Call this whatever you want to, but this is just another pathetic attempt at infringing on your basic human right to self-defense. In Garcia's press release, the laughable attempt to justify this dumpster fire of legislation is on full display, and we'll break it down for you. And he goes on and on and on into this. But you get the point, folks. This Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, and Bobby Boy, they want to restrict your access to ammunition, which is nothing more than backdoor gun control. And, you know, is unsurprising. They've tried to do crap like this before, and, well, they'll try to do crap like this again. Yeah, it's disgusting and horrible, and hopefully they don't get away with it. Him Gabriel says, those who don't learn from history don't know they're doomed to repeat it. So we have that, but they're not the only ones trying to hop onto the gun control bandwagon, because Senator Angus King from Maine has come out with this little gem. This is from Spectrum News, SpectrumLocalNews.com, from by Randy Billings from October 31st. Portland Press Herald, Senator Angus King working on new gun control legislation. Says that he's working on new federal legislation that he says would ban the most dangerous and lethal aspects of military-style assault rifles used in mass shootings, including the deadly attacks in Lewiston last week. King said Monday that he continues to oppose a bill pending in the Senate to ban about 200 specific assault-style weapons and guns with similar characteristics. President Biden and gun safety advocates across the country have urged Congress to pass an assault weapons ban in the wake of the nation's latest mass shooting. King said his bill will address the specific technologies that make such weapons especially deadly, a focus he has long advocated for as an alternative to the ban. He said it was too soon to discuss what would be in his bill, but that it would be similar to his past approach of focusing on the functionality of weapons over their appearance. I want to do something that's really going to work, King said, adding that he has been in discussions all weekend and through Monday. That's what we're working on. My goal is saving lives. And it goes on to talk about what his garbage crap is going on. And really what he's talking about, folks, semi-automatic guns. That's what he wants to get rid of. He wants to eliminate the functionality. He wants to eliminate the mechanical process that makes them deadly. Of course, that means he's talking about your antique semi-auto guns, too. He's talking about things like your M1 Garand, your M1 Carbine, etc., plus any older, like your Remington semi-autos. I'm sure this would go into your semi-auto shotguns too. So basically all your wooden steel flood guns, I'm pretty sure they'll go into it. They might let you keep your semi-auto 1022s and 22 rifles, maybe. Maybe not a 1022, because that can accept those evil 25 round high capacity magazines. So maybe they'll let you have like your Savage 22 rifles, but then again, those have detachable box magazines that you could just make longer ones, and you know that would be bad. So we can't do that. So maybe you might be able to have your Marlin Model 60, which you know has a 14 round tube, but then again, that's 14 rounds, and we all know that they want 10 rounds or less. So who knows what they'll let you keep? But the fact is, they shouldn't be letting you keep anything. Again, God-given, constitutionally protected right. Our response to them needs to be right up yours, pal. I'm not giving you shit. Says we're becoming like Canada bit by bit, and Ozzy says it might help if they actually taught history. You're right. It might. Unfortunately, folks, people like this idiot, this Senator King, and Senator Pocahontas and Congressman Garcia, they've been elected to run this country. And it's sad. It's sad that the electorate, the voters in their districts, lack the mental acumen to see what it is exactly they're voting for. It's downright stupid. Speaking of downright stupid.
And now prepare yourself for another tale of stupidity in this episode of Moron of the Week.
All right, folks, first up is Moron. In our Moron of the Week is this piece from Twitchy. It's about protecting you. DC propagandist has thoughts on banning weapons of war, quote unquote. Don't you just love when some know-nothing Democrat shill comes forward and regurgitates their uninformed propaganda all over your feed? Well, we do. It's how we make a living. Ali Samarco, formerly associated with the Democratic Party of Virginia, did just that, and it's as ignorant as you would expect. Watch. This is from her X post.
Imagine you're in a bowling alley with a handgun, and a perpetrator walks in with a military-style weapon and a bulletproof vest. There's literally no way you're going to be able to defend yourself. Banning these weapons of war on the street isn't about infringing on you, it's about protecting you.
Let me replay that last part.
These weapons of war on the street isn't about infringing on you, it's about protecting you.
Banning these, so taking away your means to protect yourself, taking away your rifles, is to protect you. Disarming you is to protect you. Sounds awful 1984, awful Orwellian. So Oh, and let's just ignore the fact that she said that if you have a pistol, you can't do anything against a rifle. First off, let's just acknowledge that a very similar situation literally did occur not far in the past, and it only took 15 seconds to take down the perpetrator. Remember Elijah Dickin at the Greenwood Mall in Indiana? He used his handgun to take down a would-be mass murderer armed with a rifle. Pepperidge Farms remembers, and you bet your bottom that we here at Twitchy do too. You can read our stories about it here, and here. Then she stupidly doubles down. For those who need to hear this, you aren't special. You aren't going to be the hero who saves everyone. You literally would not be able to defend yourself. A standard pistol is perfectly capable of being used to defend against someone with an AR-15. They're both semi-automatic weapons, so they function essentially the same way, i.e. one round is fired per trigger pull. And the rifle is not exactly a heavy caliber weapon, so a standard ammunition for a handgun will suffice. Shoot, some states even prohibit the use of an AR-15 for hunting because it's not powerful enough to cleanly bring down larger game like deer. Now, not only will it not that it will do Allie, god damn. Now, not that it will do Allie any good, but ex-users were quick to jump in and try to educate her ignorance, or just mock it. I wonder how it feels to actually be a stereotypical dumb blonde, says one pissed-off patriot. Kyle Seraphin says this is one of the most ignorant takes on the state of play in self-defense that I've ever heard. Allie, you have no idea what you are talking about. Lots of dead giveaways. Military style and bulletproof vest are near the top. Imagine you're in a bowling alley with no gun. That's way worse. When the government tells you they're going to protect you, get ready to be tyrannied. Nonsense. 60,000 followers and no sense. All weapons are weapons of war. The military issues knives and bayonets. It used to issue swords and muskets. If you saw what happened in Israel and still think civilians should be disarmed, you're beyond hope. So Awful Allie here is contestant number 1 in Moron of the Week. But wait, there is another, as Yoda said. That's ex-Fox News host chirps Ben Shapiro for saying he won't give up his AR-15. It's from October 30th. Former Fox News anchor Gretchen Carlson condemned Ben Shapiro for declaring he would not give up his assault-style rifle following the renewed calls for a ban. Ordinary people didn't have AR-15s before 2004. That's right, all of you who had pre-ban rifles? Pfft. No, you didn't. They're not some time-honored American tradition. No, they've only been being bought in this country since the 50s. They're a recent mistake that we could fix and save thousands of lives in the process. Ordinary people didn't have AR-15s before 2004. They're not some time-honored American tradition. They're a recent mistake that we could fix and save thousands of lives in the process. So, what does she do? Oh, she responds to the backlash. Let me see, can I find her response to this? No, I didn't find. Anyhow, she responded, doubling down on it and using this snarky news voice garbage. I know better than you, you fucking idiot tone of voice, to double down on her stupidity and prove that she knows even less than we thought she did. So, yeah. Wretched Carlson is contestant number 2 on Moron of the Week. So give me a second, folks, and I will put this poll up. Did I still put up a poll? Engage with the start a poll. There we go. Awful Allie Awful Alley or Wretched Carlson? Who do you think should be the moron of the week? Bob says she needs to get back to just being a dumpster. Yeah, right? So let me know out there, folks, who do you think needs to be moron of the week? So far, we've got 2 votes, and both of them are for Awful Alley. How many people we got out there? That's how many votes we should be having, folks. We got 9 people out there. Let me get some more votes out. Who do you think should be moron of the week? Awful Alley for her, you can't defend yourself with a pistol bullshit, and, disarming you is for your own good. Or Wretched Carlson for, nobody had AR-15s before 2004. They just didn't exist. Hell, I remember my dad's pre-band Bushmaster. So, yeah. Don't know what she was talking about. Shit, Bob, I bet your dad probably had one before the ban, before 2004. Hell, even during the ban, people still had AR-15s. They were just neutered. They had to do silly shit to them to get around the ban. Mountain View says Alley. So far, all 5 votes that we have out there agree that it's Alley. Awful Alley. Wretched Carlson is sliding through this. Carlson thinks that nearly 21% is more than 1/5. Right? Only 1 in 20. That was at her math. Only 1 in 20. Only 20 out of 100. Only 1 in 5, whatever, was AR-15s. Rifles were AR-15s, but that's still 20%, which is a hell of a lot when you consider how many total were out there. One of the many reasons why I don't date women like that with a 10-foot pole. Well, that would presuppose you had a 10-foot pole. Crowder and Ben Shapiro are taking them to the cleaners audience-wise. Oh, hell yes. That's why they're mad. Hell, I'm surprised I'm not taking them to the cleaners audience-wise. With my whole 10 people watching. Let's get some 5 more votes out here, folks. Awful Alley or Wretched Carlson? Awful Alley for saying that you can't defend yourself with a pistol anyway against an AR-15, and so we need to take AR-15s to protect you. That makes no sense. Even her own logic makes no sense there. And Wretched Carlson for saying that people didn't have AR-15s before 2004. We need to get some more votes, folks. Let's have some audience participation here. All right, going once, going twice, going 3 times. Awful Alley is the moron of the week.
And there we had another tale of stupidity in this week's episode of Moron of the Week.
All right, folks. Those of you who've been here before know what's coming next. We've got our topics out of the way and we've chosen our morons. So the only thing we have yet to do is our self-defense shout-outs. For those who don't know what self-defense shout-outs are, it is not where I am reveling in the prospect that the bad guy took the room temperature challenge and won the room temperature challenge by taking a dirt nap. It's where instead I'm reveling in the prospect that the good guy had the means, method, and opportunity to keep the bad guy from making them do that dirt nap. First off is this piece from WSMV.com. When's it from? October 30th. Coffee County homeowner shoots lone intruder, suspect in custody. Manchester, Tennessee. The Coffee County Sheriff's Office is investigating a home invasion in a Beech Grove area Monday morning. The Sheriff's Office said the lone intruder was shot by the homeowner during the home invasion, and the suspect is in custody. Initially, the CCSO said it was possible there were other suspects, but have since clarified the one suspect is responsible for the home invasion. The intruder remains at a local hospital. At last check, he's about to go into surgery. The CCSO warned residents to be cautious Monday morning. The investigation remains ongoing. Next up in self-defense shoutouts is this piece from KSDK.com. Ex-boyfriend shot, killed after couple woke to him standing over their bed in North St. Louis. How freaking creepy would that be, right? Police said the man acted in self-defense after he and his girlfriend woke up to the man pointing a gun at him. Police said a man acted in self-defense after he shot and killed an intruder early Friday morning inside a home in North St. Louis. According to the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department, officers responded to a report of a shooting and burglary just at before 1 a.m. Friday to a home in the 4400 block of San Francisco Avenue, located on the edge of St. Louis's Penrose neighborhood. Police said the 37-year-old man and his 36-year-old girlfriend were asleep in their bed. They woke up to find the woman's ex-boyfriend standing over them with a gun pointed at her current boyfriend. The man grabbed his own gun and shot the suspect multiple times. The suspect was pronounced dead at the scene, police said, and the man who shot him was taken into police custody. Both guns were recovered at the scene. Police released the suspect's name Saturday. He was John Bernard, 37, and he lived at the 3700 block of Cottage Avenue. Police said in an afternoon update that the man who shot him acted in self-defense and the shooting appeared to be a justifiable homicide. It's no random crime around here, said Roosevelt Buck, who lives across the street. He wasn't surprised the suspect was known to his neighbors. Our houses don't get broken into. We don't have break-ins. We have elements that come into our neighborhood, and not that often. Friends and loved ones spent Friday stopping by to comfort the victims. I don't like people to lose their life, period. But at the same time, because of the circumstances, I understand it, neighbor TK King said. And that's why you shouldn't be going to no one's house trying to break in and everything, because you never know what's going to be on the other side of that door. Neighbor Nicole Jefferson added. Absolutely right, Nicole. Police are not seeking charges at this time. The investigation is ongoing. And that's how it should be. They shouldn't be seeking charges at all against this fella. I guarantee you, if I woke up to someone standing over my bed pointing a gun at me, it'll be, yeah. So anyway, I started blasting because, yeah, I'm not going down without a fight. And finally, no matter how old they are, if you mess around, you know, you act like you're going to kill somebody else, you got to expect what's about to happen. 13-year-old killed in failed carjacking attempt, police say. A 13-year-old was shot and killed after trying to carjack an off-duty federal security officer in Northwest D.C. Saturday, according to police. Police say they responded around 10 p.m. on Saturday to 6th and D Street Northwest for the report of a shooting. Officers found a juvenile male with gunshot wound injuries at the scene. He was taken to a hospital where he died. The 13-year-old has been identified as Bernard Tony Jr. of Southeast D.C. Police say Tony and another teen approached an off-duty federal security officer who was sitting in his car waiting for his shift to begin. The duo demanded the federal security officer get out of the car. Police say one of the teens was holding his hand in his front waistband pocket as if he had a handgun. As the federal security officer got out of his car, he shot Tony with a handgun. The officer has been identified. He's been cooperating with the investigation, police say. They're still on the lookout for the second teen who was involved in the attempted carjacking. There you have it, folks. 3 instances where the good guy with the gun, despite what the liberal mainstream legacy media will have you believe, and, you know, people like Awful Alley will have you believe, good guy with the gun stopped the bad guy. And there's more of them I could have put out here. As a matter of fact, there's so many more that I think what I'm going to do is the ones that I don't put out on the show, I'm going to put out as shorts every day or two. Just to let you know that, you know what? These things happen despite what the willing idiots will have you think. So there we are, folks, all done. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. I know that, you could have done anything else on your Sunday, but you decided to come back here and start spending it with me again. I appreciate it more than I can tell you. One thing that I think is important that you guys need to do, and it's the same thing I say every week. Well, used to say every week, and will begin saying every week again, is in these dark and dangerous times, particularly when we have idiots pushing gun control, you have to let your Congress critters and elected representatives know what you think. Send them a snail mail, email, telephone, telegraph, carrier pigeon, bicycle messenger, smoke signal, semaphore, anything that you have to do to let them know what you think, and never, ever, ever give up the fight. I'll talk to you guys on the next one.